everybody who's here, members of the community, our staff, our presenters, you're all most warmly welcome, and of course the committee. Now we've got apologies from Councillor Filipaina and Councillor Collins. Councillor Quacks for lateness, Mayor Goff for early-ish departure. The way that this committee will go, 3 o'clock does sound like an early departure, and Renata Blair, member Renata, for early departure, or is it just away for a gap?
Maybe a gap.
Maybe a gap, okay.
No gap now.
Any
No
other
gap.
apologies? Lateness for Sir John, I'm presuming, but I don't think we've heard from anyone else. So I'm happy to move those. If Councillor Simpson will second. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Now, any declarations of interest? If not, and something occurs to you, just let us know when it comes up during the meeting. Just before we move on to confirmation of the minutes, I'd just like to talk a little bit about how today will run. There's obviously a huge amount of interest in the agenda and a lot to get through. So just a quick run through of how we'll do this. So we've got a large degree of public input, but we will hear from our first 3 public inputs, which are Citizens Advice Bureau, Waitemata Low Carbon Network and Northland Waste. So we'll hear from those 3 presenters. And then I guess there'll be a step change through to the Waitakere Rangers issue, and we'll have that portion of the meeting opened by Te Wara Natawa as the chief of Te Kawerau Amaki, and then we'll hear from our presenters on that issue, and then we'll move straight into the item and make the decision so we're not keeping people waiting, and then proceed with the agenda from there. So I hope that makes sense to people. I know that there's a lot of passion in the room. The one thing I am going to put out a plea, and I know that this is usually unsuccessful from the chair, but I'll give it a try anyway. When our presenters are presenting or councillors speak, there's usually, applause, cheering or jeering. I understand that that's what people want to do, but it is really disconcerting. It's time taking, and it's not always fair to the presenters, whichever side of the debate they sit on. So I'm not telling people to sit there in silence, but if people can just moderate the level of interaction, live audience interaction, that would be appreciated by all. I can see John Edgar and Mel's giving me the look on that one. We know each other well, we know how it works, but we're just trying to manage this sensibly. And I think today hopefully will be carried out in good heart and passion and good sensible decision making. So with that, there are no petitions, and I'll move that we confirm the minutes from the 14th of November. If someone will second that. Oh, someone else can move it. Councillor Simpson can move it, and Deputy Mayor Cashmore will second. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Hope we get a bit more enthusiasm during the day than that. Councillor Clow.
Sorry, I was reading declaration of interest. I'm a member of the Rangers Protection Society, and my wife's a librarian, so the item relating to the libraries, I have a conflict.
What we'll do when we get to the 2 grant applications, in case people haven't had a chance to study them in depth, we will have another call for expressions of or declarations of interest, because I think there is quite a bit of depth to those, and it would be good to just signal if you're members of any organisations. I know I've got a couple myself. Okay, so we'll note those. Councillor Clow. Councillor Darby, did you
No,
have
at the item.
At the item,
Thank
that
you.
would be useful.
Well.
And at the item, that's great. Thank you. Appreciate that. So let's open up into public input, and our first public input is from Diane Taylor from the Auckland Citizens Advice Bureau. Warm welcome to our CAB representatives. Now, members, there isn't an item on here that relates directly to CAB, but we've been putting off the CABs, and we've been promising the chance to have a say, and there's a lot of interest in this out there, particularly from our local boards, and we thought this was a good opportunity to give our CAB overarching group a 5-minute opportunity to talk to us about where they're at. So, warm welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is Diane Taylor. I'm chair of Auckland Citizens Advice Bureau, which is the umbrella organisation. I'd like to introduce my colleagues. Tracy, who's a volunteer at Glen Innes, Natasha, who's our executive assistant, and Simon, who's a member of the ACUB board, who's actually going to give the presentation. Over to you, Simon.
Thanks, Diane. Tēnā koutou. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee and members of the public, the community and the public gallery. We're reporting to you today because we're very conscious of major deliberations and decisions that Council is going to be making on the 10-year plan, and this is taking place now. And at this time, we want you to be fully aware of CAB's service and value to all of Auckland's citizens. So this is just quickly outlining, for those of you that might be wondering just exactly what we're doing. We have for a long period of time, for many decades, provided a free full advisory service for all Aucklanders. Everyone's welcome, no one's judged, and effectively any issue is on the table. There is a quote there from the Albert Eden Local Board. This was out of reports that the local boards have made in recent times, which effectively gave citizens' advice in the main a very warm reception. So most local boards find that CAB is providing a service that is aligned with their own local social objectives. So just quickly going through some of the key figures here. 25 languages are provided for our clients, and effectively those languages are increasing all the time because a number of our volunteers are providing additional languages in their individual sites. 31 sites throughout the Auckland region, only 36 part-time employees for that, and over 1,200 volunteers. That's incorporating all of our comprehensively trained volunteers, receptionists, all who volunteer for citizens' advice. And this is the number of interactions per year, almost 800,000, and that does not include visits to justices of the peace. One of the most important things for us is that we are aligned and meeting council objectives. And so we've looked at the Local Government Act and just see how to see how we've lined up. And effectively, if we take 4 purposes out of the Local Government Act, and we see that there is a very good alignment between what we are providing and what Council is requiring. Just give you a moment to have a look at those. Important that the biggest driver of service demand is low-income earners. That's where the bulk of our clients come from. Also interesting in the diversity of our communities. So that's increased tremendously in recent years. And now a very strong range of ethnicities, gender and age mix, and a high ratio of new immigrants, as one might expect. And that range effectively is reflected in the volunteers of Citizens Advice now, as well as the clients who come to us. So what value do we provide? Well, only $58,000 is available for us per site. And it's interesting to note that 30 years ago, that figure was $80,000. It's hard to believe. So now we are managing, but struggling, on $58,000 per site. Productivity's been really good. So we've had a 16% increase in visits in the last 5 years. But absolute figures don't tell the whole story, because face-to-face and phone inquiries can last over 2 hours each. And when that occurs, there are generally multi-issues. It's a multifaceted situation. And we don't know of any other agency that provides that service. So the cost to Auckland Council, if we're taking on an interaction basis, is $2.36. It would seem to us that's pretty cost effective. The current funding, we're very grateful for the over $1.8 million from Auckland Council. That's really appreciated. We get a further $150,000 from New Zealand Lotteries, and that comes to us via Cab New Zealand. And we get $750,000 from central government, also through Cab New Zealand, for systems and technology, and that's very important right through the Auckland region. So let's look at the added value for Auckland Council. We have valued our volunteer contribution based on a market rate of what we believe is quite reasonable, $28 an hour, to be $3.9 million. Wow. If you had to pay the people that are providing the service, it would be, on the rate of $28 an hour, $3.9 million, plus $750,000 from Cab NZ for investment in technology. And that investment is continuing all the time. And that gives $2.53 added dollar from citizens' advice for each council dollar. So the current status is that 1 in 5 Aucklanders use CAB services, and they've used them last year. So that's pretty significant, we would feel. That's a significant proportion of Aucklanders. The average client, female, low income, with children. 59% of our clients are female, 41% male. But our managers are part-time, overworked and underpaid. We can only afford to have a manager working 20 hours a week on a site, and then they work a lot longer than that, so they're underpaid, and volunteers are picking up more and more managerial work all the time. Our volunteers are feeling the strain, and it's really important that we don't lose them. So in short, we're becoming financially stressed. Increasingly, there are budget deficits in our bureaus. And sustainability for us is a real concern. However, looking to the future, having said and saying again, we're really grateful for Council and the funding that you give us. But we have a strong vision for the future. However, it's achievable only with sustainable funding. And here are some examples of the things that we would like to do more of, in addition to what we're already doing. Further outreach to Māori families. Partnering with urban regeneration providers like Panuku. Engaging with aged care providers so there's better transport access to CAB. Application of further state-of-the-art technology to meet the needs of young Aucklanders. And further clinics and languages introduced. We have done a lot of this in recent years. To successfully continue, we believe that we need an increase in contribution from Auckland Council to a bit over $2 million a year. And so, our final message to you is please champion our cause to ensure the future of Auckland Citizens Advice Bureau. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Simon. Now, there might be a couple of questions. I can see Councillor Newman's here. I just want to caution people, though, however, this is slightly preempting our discussions that we're going to be having on the LTP. It's going to be signed off for consultation out there to the community, and, you know, we'll have another crack at this. So we don't need to do it all now. So I'll take 4 questions. I've got Newman, Walker, Cooper and Fletcher, and I think that will be Councillor Sayers. Can we just, you know, just keep
I
it
think
quick?
it'd be a good question to ask.
It's jolly good. We'll hold you to that. Councillor Newman.
Thank you very much. The question that I have relates to the contribution from central government. I'm not going to address the council's contribution today. You've indicated 750,000 from central government for systems and technology. I am aware that individual bureaus are now picking up increasing referrals from government departments directly, MSD, Immigration, Inland Revenue, Housing New Zealand. And what I want to know is, are any of those agencies that are either advertising the Bureau or referring to the Bureau or both making any direct contributions to help offset the consequential OPEX costs that you face?
I'll take that question. Thank you. The 750,000 is basically the technology is our online information systems known as Cabnet, which are provided and maintained by CabNZ. And Cabnet provides the volunteers with information to answer people's questions when they come in, or refers us to appropriate websites. There's also a very, very good public version of Cabnet, and it's that is basically funded by government.
Chair, thank you. I think being very diplomatic, but the answer probably is that these agencies are freeloading off the CABs, they're not contributing, and that is another debate again. Thank you.
That certainly is. Councillor Newman, agree. Councillor Walker.
You just have a question further to Councillor Newman's, and that is around whether you're able to track where the referrals come from. For example, I understand that there are a significant number of referrals from Auckland Council's call centre, but equally also these various government departments. So do you have any tracking around that?
Exactly.
Not really. A lot of people come to us because of word of mouth or because they've used the bureaus previously. And one of the values that I believe that we add is very often people come with what they think is a problem. And the problem is either different or there are multiple problems. And because we're trained as volunteers to cover across the piece, we're able to identify that and help people.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher.
Well, thank you. To a degree, my question has been asked by Councillor Newman, and that is what the government might potentially do into the future. So I'm really interested, rather than just where the tracking of where the people have come from, but the actual content of the face-to-face. Have you got a breakdown, any analysis that will help us, perhaps in dialogue with central government? It would be very useful to know, for instance, we know that with rating issues, it comes along annually and there will be issues like that. But do we have any data that we could draw on that would be of assistance to us if we're sitting down with central government talking about the funding issues for CAB, given the importance they have in our community?
We provide accountability reporting and always have to Auckland Council. And that has a breakdown of the statistics, both of how, whether it was face-to-face inquiry, telephone, but also the type of inquiry, because we write up all our inquiries and we put a category onto them.
So if you have that categorisation already, could you say to us whether more than 50% is related to Auckland Council type issues, or, I mean, just some further breakdown and analysis of that area? Really, I'm not trying to lead you into answering in a particular way, but the point that Councillor Newman makes, I think, is an important one, that increasingly people are really stretched in terms of understanding what options are available, whether it's immigration or whatever else, is the main driver to a CAB. Is it local or central government, really? And you can come back to us on that.
I think Councillor Fletcher, rather than, have a sort of a half-hearted attempt now to put our group on the spot, I think this is a really critical discussion. I think it's a critical discussion going into the LTP, and I think we need some quality time and to go through the reports with the CAB to address exactly the questions you and Councillor Newman are raising. I think there has been cost shifting from central government to us, and I think we need to look at how we address that. I know in my own area, immigration is the biggest bulk of questions answered by the CABs, and that's a central government issue. So I'd love to pick up your offer to do this in more detail. Councillor Cooper.
Actually, Madam Chair, those questions around how much council information goes out through CAB was really what I was interested in. I think that's been answered, and I think we do need more of that information.
I think it would be really useful. Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Councillor Sayers, your good question.
and thank you very much, Madam Chair, for allowing me the opportunity. And it's just really will be a question of clarification, but I just really would like to warmly welcome you, Tracy, Natasha, Simon. Thank you for your presentation, and Diane. And so probably my question's directed to you, but I did enjoy your presentation very much, particularly forcing around the diversity of inquiries you have to take and the length of time on average that you're spending with a person. I'm sure a lot of that is a lot of emotional energy at times too, with people helping them through difficult times. So I just want to congratulate you on the services that you do provide. So my question is just one clarification, Simon. It's just at the end there, and it's in your paper, but just so we're all very clear, you mentioned you're looking for an increase of $2 million. I think what you're saying there is an increase to $2 million, i.e. you say a 10% increase, so you're really only looking for about another 184, 185,000.
That's right.
Right. So if I divide that over the 31 branches, it's roughly $6,000 per branch. I just want to be very clear.
Yes, that's right. That is right. I mean, that's it's still going to be tough, I think, for us with that, but it's a matter of as far as possible for us to be realistic, I think.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sayers. And final question, Councillor Clough.
Sorry, if you could indulge me, Chair. It's not a question, but if you could make sure you do a very good submission on the LTP, and we'll make sure that you're included in the key stakeholders list to come and make a more comprehensive presentation come March next year. So just encourage you. Thank you, Simon and Diane and team.
Excellent. Okay, last comment, Sharon. Councillor Stewart.
Just quickly, do you have a lot of mental health people come in, and how do you deal with that?
I personally have had an experience of somebody with a mental health problem. Yes, we do. I mean, we get all things in the Bureau. You never know what's going to hit you next. And yeah, the answer to that is yes. I mean, I've got an example, but I can't give it because our service is confidential.
It's just something else that maybe Councillor Fletcher can take back with you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Stewart. That's a good point. Well, actually, Councillor Fletcher, would you like to move that we thank the group for their
Give me much pleasure.
presentation? I thought it might. And Councillor Newman, would you like to second that?
Sure.
Lovely. So with warm thanks and the promise of a follow-up, I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much for your time.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. So we move on to our next public input, which is the low carbon, Waitemata Low Carbon Network, and we've got Francis Palmer and Dr. Grant Hewison, well known to Council, and warm welcome. So roughly about 5 or so minutes. Thank you. And Damon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kia ora koutou. Though one of my hats is convener of the North Shore Forest and Bird Climate Action Group, I'm here today with other members of the Waitemata Low Carbon Network, including Damon Birchfield, who's the excellent facilitator of the network, which has been going for several years now, and lawyer Dr. Grant Hewison. We're here this morning to speak about our climate crisis, especially with reference to the report on your agenda, Low Carbon Auckland 2018 Review and Update. Having been encouraged by Auckland Low Carbon Plan's 2014 goal to reduce emissions 10 to 20% by 2020, it is quite disturbing to read this week in the North Shore Times that Auckland's emissions are actually rising at a faster rate even than in previous years. This is not the trajectory we all know we want to be on and need to be on. So what would it take now to reach 2014 targets in the low carbon plan, such as 17% increase in locally generated renewable energy by 2020? I'll now hand over to Dr. Hewison to present our concerns.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou. We thought we'd just start with the next slide, which is just a little bit of the science. So you all know about the Paris Agreement on climate change, and you're probably also aware of it set a goal of holding the increase in global average temperatures to well below 2 degrees Celsius and trying to limit the increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius. If we don't meet these goals and temperature rises above 2 degrees, it's likely to put adaptation beyond the capacity of humanity. Now, it sounds a bit radical, but basically what that means, or put simply, is human beings are not designed to live on a planet with that degree of temperature. We can't adapt to that degree of increase. So we have to mitigate. We have to radically reduce our carbon emissions. So this bathtub kind of concept is just a little way of explaining that, I suppose, in simple terms. So we've been filling up our bathtub with carbon dioxide, and if it overflows, we've reached that 2 degree level, and it's, we're in serious problems. We have to reduce that level of flow, and we have to keep the level of water below the lip of the bathtub, and that means reducing our carbon dioxide emissions from where we are now, of increasing emissions to 0 by 2050. That's the science, and there's plenty out there that'll reinforce that point. So I wanted to go to the next slide. The issue here is that the climate crisis is not something that is off into the future. It's something that is with us right now, and we're experiencing it right now. They may feel like just abnormal weather patterns, but it is the effect of climate change. So we've had, at the beginning of this year, Cyclone Cook threatening to close the Harbour Bridge, an unprecedented event in terms of New Zealand. The sinkhole that opened up in New Lynn is an example. The restrictions, you'll recall, that Watercare placed on us using water because of the rainfall that had contaminated some of our dams. And finally, Māori specifically were impacted when Ōraki Church and Urapa were flooded. And that will happen again and again as we move into the future. So these weather events are not one-offs, they're increasing and they're accelerating. Next slide. So our new Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, has said that climate change is the nuclear-free moment of our generation. I'd probably go further and say it's much, much more complex than being nuclear-free, and those of you who are my kind of age will look back and go, well, that was relatively simple to fix. This is not simple to fix. It's extraordinarily complex. The Labour Green Coalition agreement includes commitments to a zero emissions economy by 2050, with a focus now, in this term of government, on transport and urban form, energy and reducing waste. These are all things that you as council are intimately involved in, and in a number of places are things that you control, and would need statutory change if the government was going to do that. Instead, what it will look to from you is serious collaboration, and you will need to look to your community in Auckland to collaborate with you to achieve these sorts of results. But you have provided leadership on this issue at a time when perhaps central government wasn't there to provide that leadership, and we applaud you for what you've achieved already. You've made big commitments in terms of your long-term plan, the previous one, big commitments through the low carbon plan, commitments to reduce emissions by 40% by 2040. Looking back, when that commitment was made, that was a serious commitment for this council to put in those plans and to follow up in terms of other declarations and your commitments and through C40. But that's not going to get us there. 40% by 240 is actually only about halfway there. We need to be, if we're moving to where the government's goals are, taking a much, much bigger step in terms of future commitments. Sorry, we've skipped a couple of slides, so if you just jump over to the next one, and that one there's fine. So the report on your agenda shows that Auckland Region and Auckland Council are achieving results in terms of some actions, but unfortunately in many others you're not, and we as your community are not. Overall, as Francis said, emissions are still increasing, so we haven't even levelled off, our emissions are still increasing. So in terms of achieving even the result that you've already committed to of 40% reduction by 2040, even that, the agenda item on your report is talking about a significant shift in terms of a whole range of activities that you are responsible for. We'd probably say, and I'm choosing this word probably conservatively, we were actually talking about a radical shift, unfortunately. Next slide. So where to from here? Well, if we fall back on some of the mechanisms that you as council have control over, one is that we are entering into your next 10-year budget round. And we feel that you need to lift your game in terms of climate change and think hard about its role in terms of this 10-year budget. It needs to be at the forefront, particularly in light of the commitments you've made and the commitments you'll have to make into the future. Perhaps one thing is to step back and do a climate change audit. What does your budget mean in terms of your emissions? What does it mean in terms of where you're heading in terms of climate change? Beyond that, we're also in the process of refreshing the Auckland plan, a 30-year horizon. So that plan takes us essentially out to 2050. Climate change is a footnote in that plan, but you can hardly find it. Let's say you need to think again. It needs to be an overriding theme. It needs to work its way through that entire plan. Some positives. You've, on your agenda today, an option to refresh the low carbon plan. We absolutely support that. We think you also need to keep the adaptation side of the equation, which is what you do to stop the flooding or what you do to protect your assets on one side, but you also need to focus on mitigation separately and be clear about what you as a council and the council family are going to do in terms of mitigation. We think you almost need another separate document that says we're committing to this as the council family and we will be tested by our community in terms of our progress on that. But we also want to provide that leadership for the Auckland regional community and carry forward an adaptation and mitigation plan separately. We're looking forward to the mayoral proposal for increases in environmental funding and would support that, of course, with the caveat that climate change is well funded within that program. In particular, as I said, council needs to walk the talk. And again, you'll find that language in your agenda item further down. And that means a separate mitigation strategy. We support the idea of establishment of an independent climate change advisory group, but I think one of the lessons from the low carbon plan from 2014 is that you need to have that group established in an ongoing way into the future. Otherwise, the community that supports it becomes fragmented again. So we support that independent advisory group. It must have an ongoing role. It needs to be there to guide you. It needs to be there to challenge you, and it needs to be there to evaluate your progress as the council family and ourselves all together as the Auckland community. So some positives there. You just need to look closely at following up on some of those key points in your agenda today. Just over onto the next slide. Now, the Productivity Commission isn't known for its radical thoughts and comments, but actually what it says about low carbon in its recent issues paper is quite radical. So you'll find there that the Productivity Commission says the shift from the current economy to a new low carbon emissions economy will be profound. You know, it uses the word profound and widespread, transforming land use, an activity that you clearly have a significant control over, the energy system, which you have a relationship with, production methods, technology, other institutions, including political culture. So a profound and widespread shift is what the Productivity Commission, a rather conservative body, is saying in terms of how we're going to have to address this issue. So if we are to get there by 2050, we need to be ramping up in a significant or radical way our efforts right now. And it simply isn't something we can leave to future generations. This is our generational nuclear-free moment. We need to be providing that leadership, making those hard decisions, and taking the steps forward that we need to. Thank you, Madam Chair, and we'd be very happy to answer any questions.
Fantastic, thank you, Grant. Just one of the most staggering statistics that I've heard lately is if we don't meet our Paris Agreement climate change reduction targets and we carry on the current trajectory, we would wipe $43 trillion off the world economy immediately because the earth would simply be uninsurable. And I think, you know, this is really grown-up stuff. This isn't our large corporates doing carbon accounting because they're good people. It's because they know the financial implications. So thank you for your excellent presentation. Councillor Wayne Walker.
George, just have a question around the Wainamata low carbon group. Perhaps if you could just give an indication of how long that group's been around and what it does, Grant and Francis and Damon.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. So the network itself was an action in Waitemata Local Board's local low carbon plan. I can't tell you exactly, I think it was about 3 years ago that plan was put out into the public. So but we effectively started meeting more regularly probably about 18 months ago. And the network meets on average every 6 weeks. We do, it's just people anyone from the community can come along to the meetings. We also do networking, we do information sharing, and then there are people like Grant and Francis who have a real interest in the sort of the actual policy conversation, and so they've got themselves organised around that.
And just to clarify, the budget for this group and the impetus have both come from the Wainamata Local Board, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So we'll go into more detail on this when we get to the item, but Councillor Walker, would you like to move?
Happy to move and to commend the Wainamata Low Carbon Network, Madam Chair.
Excellent, and I'll second that and echo the points you raise. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, councillors. We look forward to your debate later on.
I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. So moving on to our last presentation prior to our big one, we've got Ray Lambert from Northland Waste, and welcome, Ray. You've got 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, councillors. My name's Ray Lambert. I'm a director and shareholder of Northland Waste. Northland Waste is a private provider of waste and recycling services across Auckland and right around the Northland region. And we've got a real focus in the Rodney region where we've operated for some years. We're 100% locally owned, and we provide a full range of services, right from recycling right through to the end, ambulance at the end of the cliff, landfill service. Employ around 250 people and provide a quality and sustainable service for our clients. In a personal capacity, I'm an investor and a shareholder. It would surprise many possibly that I've got a marine biology degree and a postgraduate degree in environmental science, and I entered the waste sector on the back of wanting to do something positive. And I guess we really do support the intent of the waste plan, but we have some real problems with the way it's being implemented in our view. I guess if I highlight 3 areas of primary concern we have, one is in our local community, Warkworth, where we have been the incumbent operator of a transfer station for some 20 odd years, and we'd note that we're not promoting ourselves as because we've been there we should be there forever. We're happy that our service gets measured on value and environmental grounds. What does concern us is when we look at the waste plan and we see that council has an objective of creating 5 jobs in Warkworth and saving 500 tonnes from landfill, when we have 6 people employed at those facilities and we currently save 1,500 tonne per annum. And I guess our concern is we see a bias towards community groups rather than a company, and we think we're being labelled as a company unfairly and prejudiced on that basis, and we'd like to, I guess, work constructively with council and be part of the community recycling network, but we can't seem to make inroads. In terms of our own activities in the Warkworth area and right throughout the region, we're involved in glass collection voluntarily, on a commercial basis, cardboard collection, green waste collection, mixed plastic collection and recycling collection. I guess to top it off, when we've actually been bidding to be a successful tenderer in this proposal, we've actually seen grants issued to a competing tenderer in the form of a community group. So I'm sort of feeling I've put my house on the line, put a mortgage on it, invested in recycling, but somehow we're being prejudiced as a private company, and I'm asking for a bit of equity around that issue. In terms of domestic collection, we've operated a private user pays service throughout Rodney for the last 20 odd years. We were quite excited when we saw the waste plan. We saw a move towards user pays, and we said, how could we work with council? And we actually approached council, this going back 5 years ago, and said, look, we'd actually quite like to get involved in recycling and use some of the proceeds from our rubbish collection in recycling. And the response at that time was, no, we've got a plan, we know what we're doing, we'll carry on. And the outcome has been, with a progressive rollout of the waste plan, we're still there, we're providing collection services to the most sparse and expensive area of Auckland at the moment. So we don't cherry pick within our region, we're travelling right out to the far reach beaches, Port Albert, and collecting rubbish at a flat rate for the same as the region. Our concern is lately that we've heard comments along the lines of, oh, well, we'll enter the market, but if we're unsuccessful, we'll just prop it up with rates. And we believe that's unfair. If again, we want to be competitive, so we're not afraid of competition. We're a Kiwi company and we're battling up some big Chinese companies we're up against, so we're holding our own. But I think if our services aren't competitive and council can provide them more cheaply, we understand that, that's life. But if you can provide it more cheaply, you shouldn't have to use rates to subsidise that. I think if you enter a space where you need to use rates to fund that, then by definition you weren't as competitive as we were. I guess the last issue we'd raise is the future direction of the waste plan, and we do notice a couple of areas in there, and we're also aware that council's had a section 17A review recently where you've looked at, are you getting value for money? And part of that review is very carefully worded in saying you must scrutinise your future proposals with both cost and benefits. What we see is a lot of benefits proposed without looking at the cost. And if I look at a couple of areas, there's a move in the new plan towards waste minimisation in the commercial sector. We just want to make sure that those proposals are consistent in delivering value and measured against some rigorous analysis. And we haven't seen that as yet. Last one is council's proposing an increase in the waste levy. What it needs to be aware of, many sparse rural communities already have their own waste levy in that the cost to get to landfill is a lot higher. and we operate in the far north. Now, the far north ultimately will probably have to use a landfill in Whangarei. It is $60 a tonne to move rubbish from the far north. So the impact of our waste levy, when with cities close to landfills, may be smaller than rural communities. Furthermore, we have commissioned our own report. Now, your own waste plan relies heavily on a report prepared by a company called Eunomia. We approached the economists that the Ministry of the Environment used to look at the waste levy. Now, the net cost after benefits from a $140 landfill levy that's being proposed is in the vicinity of $300 million as a net cost, and the majority of that will be borne by Auckland. So we would ask that you look carefully at the cost-benefit analysis from some of these projects. I guess in closing, Northland Waste is a company that we have put our money where our mouth is. We've invested in recycling. We own a large recycling facility in Northland. I've personally put an investment in, but I'm being asked to compete on an inequitable basis with community groups, and I don't think that's fair. Many of those groups are being subsidised by council. I guess in closing, we'd like to meet with officers, we'd like to enter a constructive relationship, but at the moment I think we're viewed as the enemy, and we'd like to improve that situation. So thank you for your time. And
Thank you, Ray. I'm sure there'll be a couple of questions. I just want to put a little bit of caution in the direction of members. Remember, this is not an opportunity for us to discuss tenders or business, so, you know, we need to be cautious around that. The item for us today is our waste plan, and Mr. Lambert and his team, Northland Waste, will have every opportunity to comment on that and, you know, as you say, meet with staff to discuss these issues. So the only decision we're making today is to put this out for consultation, so you're welcome to participate in that. As far as the debate and discussion on the business side of things goes, that's a discussion for our tendering process, not for here. Questions? Councillor Sayers.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And Ray, thanks for coming in, and thank you for your presentation. Obviously, I'm aware of your company operating through Rodney. I just had a couple, again, clarification questions. You mentioned in there about the possibility of a subsidy. I was getting the impression that you're a little bit worried that perhaps a monopoly situation might be occurring, and to achieve that, council might be subsidising against perhaps what could be provided privately. Have you got any ideas around the figures there, Ray, in terms of the amount of subsidy per ratepayer, or do you have some sort of breakdown just to elaborate on that?
There's two areas of potential subsidy. One's in regard to transfer stations / recovery facilities, and if we look at equivalent facilities in the likes of Waiuku that we're operating in Warkworth and Waiuku, there's funding of up to 300,000, whereas in Warkworth and Wellsford it's free. So the quantum around that would be 300,000 per annum. I guess furthermore, we're prepared to invest $3 million into the local community. In fact, we're developing our own facility if we can't work forward with council. The second element of subsidies is around domestic collection. So we provide a user-pays collection service that's totally independent of any rates contribution. If council enters the space in our market and they provide a service more cheaply, there'd be no subsidy. If they can't and they don't secure market share, and they had to top that service up, then that would cost. And I would suspect it's many hundreds of thousands.
Right. And I think the Chair also, if I've heard you right, Madam Chair, there's opportunity. You've obviously expressed some concern about getting into council, be able to contribute to these processes. Obviously, you have some learnings. You've got 3 times the amount of tonnage being saved per annum compared to perhaps council. So just, Madam Chair, is it possible to find out, I think you mentioned it's going out to public consultation, is that the only avenue open to Northland Waste to contribute back?
Yeah, no.
Perhaps get some elaboration there, how they can get alongside the correct officers inside council.
No, we've had a lot of discussion with Northland Waste, and it's it's not always it's been challenging. I think it's fair to say, Ray, but the door's never closed to discussing anything with Northland Waste. Dean?
Nothing to add. The door's open, Ray, as you know. There's regular dialogue with those in the industry, and we've got a public consultation process about to commence. Yep. And that's where we need the feedback from the wider industry as well.
That's what this process is about, but in the meantime, we're unapologetic about driving a zero waste agenda and making sure that our community get a fair deal. That's our responsibility, and then we deal with business, you know, in the role that business have, but we need to get the best deal for our ratepayers. That's our business. So thank you, Ray, appreciate that, and I'll move that we thank you for your presentation, and maybe Greg, Councillor Sayers might like to second that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried, thank you. So we now move on to probably the most substantial part of our meeting, and I'd like to, in the first instance, invite Te Warana and Edward, and I see Rerewi in the room. Rerewi, if you'd like to join us as well, and anyone else who is joining the Te Kawerau Amaki side of the presentation. Warena. It's Te Warana. Well spotted, Linda. Just while we settle.
Pea wairea tuane te pūrā tangata au taka tūra ki te rā ki tangata tai. Te rau ira te kōrepe nui te kōrepe roa te wāhi wa te toe toe awa ko moe tamei te rapa mau tamei te rako tūkorongo mai e mai te tane. Mai e mai te wānanga I haere mai ai koe I a whakauturuku I a whakauturangi. O tō mana ki taku mana me tāne ka iri hia whāna whana ki tū mai te tōki hau me hui e.
Tai ki.
Ai tu ake anau, miha tiki a koutou te tira te kaura amaki e tatu mai ai te ahutanga o tēnei whare. Nei rā ngā mihi no māhu ki te rangi no te uri o Haumoi Wārangi ko te rangatira e Tupuriri e mihi ati ki a Hawks. E tāpiri ana taku nei waka ki te manu ngai tai, te manu o Manoa Tere noho ki tōku nei taha. Ko hia mai ngā mihi kauana ki a koutou, I rungi tēnei tagi nui te wā o Tiriwa, te uru kā rai rai. Me wera atu o nā rangatira I roto I te wao. Pēnei ki tēnei kaupapa nunui te mate haere o te tātenei rangatira I roto I tā wao. Nō reira ko tēnei wā he mihi atu ki a koutou, mihi mai rā koutou, I rungi tēnā te mana, I a koutou e manaki e tiaki ana, ngā tini rākau, me nā atua I roto I tau ana wao. Kāre au te tōrongi ngā kōrere ngāri mai te tiamana, kai ko nei, kauru mai koutou I tā hautanga tēnei huihuinga, tēnā rata te koutou.
Tēnā koe te rangatira. Tēnā koe mi mai ki a mātua o te tū mai nei ki mua I te mea, te kauni hera, mo te take nunui tēnei. No reire ki hoki te rā I o kōrero, te tīmatanga, me miha tura ki a rātau ko wehe, kā tika. Ngā inoi, ko inoi I te ata nei ki te whakapuare hoki I te huarei ke mua ki a tātou, kā tika. Me te rangatira kua tai mai ki mua ki a mātua I te rangi nei. Tēnā rā koe I mihi mai ki a mātua katoa, te taha ki a ngā te whātua o rākei, anō a hau, me ngetehi, noho mai ki taku taha, heuri anō nā tupuriri, te taha ki tāna wahine ki a te whainga, taka mai ki a te pairimu, ana ko mātua tērā. Te taha ki a ia, ko au anō tēnei, ko te tuhia Manawa Tere. I taka mai I a te whatatau, no reiro ko tātua anō tātou. Engari me mihi atu rā ki te kauni hera. Me te puari, kua tatu mai nei, ki aku hoa, o runga o te puari o takurohe o Waitake. No reira kāre nui, aku mihi ki wainui a tātou. Tēnā pēr ka roro hoki. Engari, aha kua ko wai, me mihia, aha kua I haere mai ai māua ki runga I tō māua nei waka ko mātua naki, ina tai mai ko konei ko kite ko tātou katoa, I roto I tō tahitanga no reira tēnā koutou mea ku hoa whawhai I mua, kei runga I ngā tipu nei, kia ora tātou.
Kia ora, Warana. I just want to note we've got, Erin is translating. We just need to check. Members, as far as the mihi and the welcome and the acknowledgement goes, I think most members are comfortable and would have kept close track of what Wairana said. Wairana,
It's
would
most
you?
diplomatic indeed.
It was indeed diplomatic and warm, and I wonder, are people needing a translation for that, or when it comes to the actual presentation by Te Kawerau Amaki, we can translate that? So just a bit of an indication. Most people are comfortable with the mihi and the welcome. Kia ora Wairana. So Erin, would just want to acknowledge we've got Erin here to do the translation. So Wairana, first of all, I just want to acknowledge you from the chair and again on behalf of the members who are here. Thank you, Renata, for the acknowledgement of Wairana and Te Kawerau Amaki as the kaitiaki of the forests of Te Rewa, which are indeed in trouble. So this is now the chance for the Te Kawerau team to make your presentation. And again, I just want to acknowledge you being here, well known, well loved and well respected as you are to those of us from the West.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here today, and it's going to be a good test for old Aaron here because it's the first time he's done translations, to have all people but me up as his first. Nō reira tēnā koutou. Ko tāku tuatahi haere mai ai nā runga no I tōku nei mana o Te Kawerau Amaki.
Firstly, topic at hand, Te Kawerau Amaki.
Nā runga no I te mana o aku tūpuna I tai mai ai.
From the authority given to me by my ancestors.
Mai rāno, mai te taima tuatahi I noho noho ai I rātau I runga I te whenua, te wā I ngā tūrehu o ku tūpuna, me ki ko tiriwa mā, taka mai ki aku pōko whiwhi I tēnei rangi, ko haua no tēnei, ko mātua no tēnei, ngauri o te whenua.
From long ago, from beyond time, from the time of our ancestors and our rangatira, from Tiriwa, descending down to myself and to us gathered here today.
Nā reira, me e hara I te mea, taihua e hoa, e hara I te mea kāra koe taia te whakapākehatia aku kōrero, engari hua mea nāu I roto I awa no kāra koe taia te whakaki. Look, I'm being very kind and gentle to him because it's his first time to translate, and I'm not an easy person for someone to translate. Because if the translation doesn't suit me, I cut them off. Now, I don't want to go down that track because I found out he's a relative of mine. So I'm going to speak in a language that we all understand and get to the point. And, but I will say, having spoken to him outside, he speaks very good English. He should get better, but you should probably only put novices up before him, at least until he gets going with it. But it's not an easy job because translating for native speakers is not an easy thing. Thank you very much. Right. So I'm here today on behalf of the tribe. Do I have the mana of the tribe to be here? Absolutely. I have had that mana for a very long time, in fact, since I was born, and brought up by my old people and within Waitakere. I live out at Ihumātao, but I was also brought up in Waitakere. I went to Waitakere school as a young boy, and then we had to come back to Ihumātao to look after our grandmother, Te Pukura Amaki, or the great sacred red bowl of maki, another old name of Tāmaki Makaurau. But my take here today is this chief in front of me, the kauri tree. Now, when growing up, you know, we loved the bush, but we were told when we grew up, as we grew up, you don't just go to the bush for nothing. We weren't allowed to run around in the bush like people do today. We only ever went to the bush to get leaves, to pick leaves, to ask the birds for their okay for us to enter the bush, because they guard the outside of the bush. They are the ones who correspond with our ancestors, and they talk to one another, and they're a big family in the bush. Their area is becoming smaller. We then go into the bush, and then the first one we talk to is the great Kauri tree. Everyone knows the Kauri is a great thing. A tree with mana, a tree that has so much power, a tree that has given much of its life to the old historic buildings in this very city. I want to say that that's how we were allowed to enter the bush, just to gather leaves and then come back out and leave the bush alone. And that's the way in which I was brought up. We weren't allowed to tramp, we weren't allowed to do those things, because when you walk into the bush, you walk on life. You walk on life. There are lots of life under the leaves. There are little things called, hanga mea mo te tāmoko, ngā karapusa. Awheto. There's these little funny things that pop up around the trees and around the rata and the kauri, and they're like caterpillars. They pop up, and we use that for dye. We dry them up and we crush them, and it makes the black dye for tattooing pigment, and they just get trampled on. So, but what is important for me is the life of these trees, because there are at least 17, 18 other species of trees that live around the kauri that actually need kauri to survive. Without the kauri, it's not going to just be, and if the kauri dies, then you've got a whole bush that's going to follow it. Because when the chief goes, the big chief, then the rest just follow. And they cannot sustain life in the bush. How the hell do I know? Because we've lived there for 1,000 years. That's how. And we've had 1,000 years occupation and relationship, and a very good one, I might add, with the bush. The bush there, named Te Waunui o Tiriwa, the great forest of Tiriwa. We descend and whakapapa from Tiriwa. Tiriwa was a tūrehu. And, you know, I was thinking about it this morning. I was hugely involved in all the district plans, at least for the last 30 years, and working with Waitakere City on this committee, this board, that board, and for many, many years to look after and save our bush. And in the heritage reports that were written, items that were passed and law by legislation to protect our forests have not done very well. There have been individuals, some who have had a strong voice, and only then did they ever get past the table. I suspect it's not the same today, and there are many things at play. I went through the other day, and that was to put the rahui, lay the rahui at the front of the cascades. And when we walked through like our old people walk through. We did nothing different to what they did and what they have done for the last 1,000 years, and that was to offer prayer. I even washed my boots. But when we went through, and I thought, my God, what the hell are these stations? And I asked some scientists the other day, have these stations has it been proved that they scientifically work? No te warena. Another one said, I think they do, but I've never seen a report that says they actually work. So I don't know as an individual what is being done by the powers that be that are actually saving these trees. I came to an inaugural meeting here with some council members and others, everyone who has responsibility or positions of responsibility to add to the fabric to look after our kauri tree. And I sat there and listened. I said, stop. You know what? I said, many reports, scientific and others, are being written about these trees, and lots of money gets spent on them, but I don't want for my mokopuna to read reports about the trees that used to be, that used to stand there. And what do? Well, it's not unknown. Many, many years ago, we laid a rahui at Karekare, and it was very, very successful. It was observed, and people observe it. It might take time, but word goes there, it then goes further afield. It's a bit like gossip, and it makes its way out, and then people become aware of the need to protect Kauri. And at the meeting I said, you know, when someone is sick, you take them over here. And my grandfather's time, they say, haere koe ki te puihi, haere koe ki te wai. Go to the water, cleanse that one, and bring some life back, or take to the bush, spend some time there, talk to the trees, and get what is necessary to heal that person. Well, it's the same when the trees need the help. We go in, we talk, we offer incantations, and it is so, so important. The bush, like the sea, knows how to look after itself. Trust me, trust me. Leave the bush alone, and this is what I said at this meeting, stop all human traffic, because we are told by Western scientists that it is human traffic that is causing this problem. Well, it doesn't take much to click up there. Then you have to stop the human traffic. It's a bit like our roads at the moment. Well, horrific. It took for me to get from my village at Ihumato this morning to come here. And but the tunnel was nice. I observed the speed. But it's a bit like that, you know. You leave the bush alone. It needs to heal, and the only way it's going to do it is to stop human traffic. Some people said to me the other day, oh, you can't stop them. I said, go away, please go away. You can still have some hangi afterwards. Levy's made some nice hangi, but don't come to me and talk about that. But leave the bush alone. That's our view. It's simple, really. I'm not here today to tell you this or that. I'm here to make a stand for Kawerau. There are other groups here who are also making their stand and will make their stand. Someone asked me, do you have the support of other tribes who have a claim to the area? And luckily, that person was at a distance. I just said, yes, of course we do. Every Māori supports us. Absolutely, throughout the whole country. How do you know? I said, because I'm telling you. But one cannot take this issue lightly. Lastly, I wish to add, because I know my 5 minutes is up, I've sat on these tables before. 26th of October, if you haven't all received this letter that was put together by my executive manager, he's becoming very Māori indeed, Edward Ashby, and I'm running away off to your ancestors' country tonight. I'm going to Europe and spend some time, 6 weeks away from work, so you can all talk about me. And Edward's going to hold the roast. Aren't you, Edward? You're going to do what's necessary. Please say yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So that's it from me. It is really about what are we going to do. We can work with people. We can work with council. We can work with anyone. But I can't see what the problem is by it's a simple and real cheap, very cheap, costs nothing, stop people from going through the bush. It needs it. It needs that. Extreme situations need extreme measures to be taken for that to happen. Kia ora.
Kia ora te warana. Now, does anyone else want to add anything, or are you happy to take questions? Did we?
All good.
No? Okay. It's questions.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Just in support and thanks to Te Kawerau Maki for the presentation today. I think Te Wārena's been quite measured in what he's delivered. I think this is an urgent and extreme environment that we're in. And I'd put it down to almost another eradication of te ao Māori from the face of the forest. These trees are likened to when a great chief dies and certainly the chiefs of the forest are dying. And we need to, I see the measures, and I'm quite correct in saying that we would like to ensure that this is completely slowed down, otherwise the other measures of option 3 or 4 are just slowing things down. Whereas option 5 is something where we can take a breath to ensure that we can control this disease, research this disease and eradicate it. And Te Wārena is quite right that the bush will heal itself, but it won't heal it if we've got constant human interaction on these tracks. As I see it, those stations are very in poor condition. They're not proven to have worked and largely ignored by people that go into the forest. And I think that's a travesty, really, that people go into the forest and don't even care that their influence of spreading this disease. It's something which is the council needs to take very, very seriously. Also, the pests that are in the forest are spreading these diseases, and how are we controlling those? And in terms of why don't we shut it down and then open the tracks that are going to be, that are safe for people to travel down, safe for our kauri, as opposed to kind of shutting the severe ones down but leaving the other ones open so even more disease can spread through the ones that are not at risk. I think that's an oxymoron myself. This is a biosecurity issue of the highest degree for a nationally significant forest. This isn't a Auckland forest, this is a national forest, and one which certainly the IMSB and all the iwi are on board in supporting Te Wārena and Te Kawerau Maki and what they're saying. Okay. I'm very concerned that we have an option 3 on the table as opposed to the option 5 as the recommendation, Madam Chair. So those are my statements at this time. Kia ora for letting me.
And I think we'll move into that when we get to the actual item as well. Thank you. Other comments? Councillor Casey.
Yeah, excellent letter, Edward, on behalf of Te Kawerau Maki. I would like to ask about the paragraph at the top of our page 62, which is quite critical of council. Could you just say a wee bit more, Te Wārena, about the issue has been raised, our voice is drowned by a cacophony of self-interested community voices, operational policies and political lethargy. Each of those, I'm interested in your comment.
Edward?
Kia ora. Yes, one of my specialties in wordsmithing that letter. But look, we've been dealing with, as Kawerau, I've been working with Kawerau for 5 years, and in those 5 years we have consistently raised the issue of kauri dieback as a existential threat, as an urgent threat, and we have also raised, if necessary, the option to close it down via a rāhui until the matter's appropriately dealt with. My experience is that in a lot of public fora, our voices drowned out. The cacophony that I referenced there are, we understand there's a lot of businesses, there's a lot of people that make their income in the Waitakere, and we understand that, we sympathise with that, but that shouldn't come at the cost of an entire forest, that shouldn't come at the cost of the iwi, that shouldn't come at the cost of the environment, and this is again a nationally significant environment. So that's sort of these self-interested voices, while we can certainly sympathise with them, it doesn't balance out with the cost. The operational policies, we have found, in my experience, we've been hamstrung by process. Our voice has been filtered through middle management up to the political decision makers at council. and that was the reason why this letter was written, to try to make our position clear, because we kept finding it filtered. And the political lethargy is self-explanatory. The forest is dying, the rate of death is doubled, more than doubled, and while things have been done, we don't even know if those things work. Well, we know that they don't, because the rate's more than doubled. So, you know, when we have raised this issue in the past, more times than not, the response back has been nothing. And
Response back from which arm of council politics?
take your pick, quite frankly. And that experience has been mirrored with central government as well.
Can I quickly add to that, if you please? Look, there are also those lands which have come back to Te Kawerau-Wāmaki through settlement with the Crown. So apart from all these policies that were supposed to protect, so on and so forth, there are substantial lands that have come back via the Crown settlement, and there are lands, some of those lands have, there are covenants on the land, there are all sorts of legal stuff that gives Te Kawerau-Wāmaki the mana under which to deal with the councils and with conservation, who, since signing the deed of settlement February 2014, has been vacant. We've not had one letter, one phone call, and that concerns us. And so the other thing is, I note there are clubs who make money by going over the tracks, and I want to say that some of these tracks, they are probably unaware is on lands that are legally owned by ourselves. Yet no one has actually come to say, can we, having gone through the bush and venturing off into the wilderness and then out in the open and then crossing over Goldie's bush or track, which is the mana is under us, there are those lands too which have come back to us and in our ownership, but no one says, can we do this? It becomes a huge job to try and look after the taonga that I in particular fought so many years with the Crown to get back under our ownership. Even that's happening.
Mihi atu kia koe, mi aku tūkana. A koutou katoa, e ngā uri o Te Kawerau-Wāmaki. E tino pauri ka rongo kia koutou kōrero. Nō reira, e whakamārama mātou o tātou ki te mamai kātū e te rangatira. Ai tēnei atu e te rākau tēnā koe. I want to echo the words of Renato so far as the inherent DNA support that you should enjoy from Māori and mana whenua in this unfortunate journey for yourselves and for us all. E kia kaha tātou. And we need to be strong. I think inevitably, Madam Chair, the polite request we're hearing this morning is exactly that. It's inevitable. The science, the academia at the moment is not giving much confidence to either side around what the solutions may be. I don't want to disrespect the mana of the rākau or Te Kawerau-Wāmaki, but I also liken this to the rāhui that we currently enjoy as Ngaitai ki Tāmaki e Rumapuia over the Tuangi. And you know, over a 10-year scientific period where we started with 42 million units, you couldn't count the heads of people picking. But when we got to 2 million units, all of a sudden, inevitably, the request we had made 10 years earlier became a demand that the rāhui take not just effect, but immediate effect. So the numbers have already doubled in the short space. The suggestion is that it'll double again if we continue to dibby-dabby. Yes, it does take courage, Madam Chair, Brennan, I thought we were sitting with a courageous council. So we're here to encourage your appetite, because inevitably what has been requested very shortly will become an inherent demand of us all when we get down to we've nearly lost the lot. So unlike a kiwi or a tuangi, where you can see its growth and you can smell its goodness, the kauri takes slightly longer, and he may not stand up in front of you today and punch you in the eyes. He takes a very long time. But he is relied upon by many other taonga within the ngahere. In the simple words of Te Wārana, people bring the love and the joy, but they also bring the challenges that are now facing the rākau and all of us. Ui anō, ka mihi nunui kia koutou, kia kaha tātou. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Ora, Member Brown. Councillor Kuka. Did I put my hand up? I'm a bit confused because we haven't got questions, but I do think that it's really important that we're able to address the kawarau when they are here, not sitting in the back of the room. Kia ora mihi to you, Te Wārana. And I've heard what you said. I guess for me, and I wanted to speak because I wanted to just address the issue that was raised in your letter, which Councillor Penny and Hulse and I didn't receive initially at all. And we were very concerned because we have a long relationship with you, nearly quarter of a century. And, you know, we value that relationship, and maybe that goes up and down over time depending what the issues are, and with Ruby as well. And I guess for us, it's sort of with sadness that we didn't have a direct conversation with you to actually address this, and then we got it from your executive officer roundabout through the local board, not directly as the councillors who voted for the Waitakere Ranges Heritage Area Act to go forward to Parliament. We're with you on the beach at Karekare for the Rahui. So we hope that we can rebuild that relationship and be more direct, a direct relationship with you, because it saddened us greatly. But I honour you and Te Kawerau for coming, and I think it's really important that you've come for people to hear your plea, and you know that you do have the mana over the forest. Absolutely, and it's the right thing to do, to put that rahui on, and we were pleased to be there on Sunday with you. Yeah, so I guess our plea is to for us to rebuild that relationship as the local councillors. We would really value that. Kia ora.
Very good. May I respond very quickly? Look, I think it's all. I think that's felt. Can I say that your processes are your processes, and it's not my executive officer's fault that the letter didn't reach absolutely everyone that it should. I mean, you have your own processes within council. But I want to say and hit on this word that you use, relationship. It is true. I mean, I've worked alongside many of you for the last 30 plus years, and we've all worked so very hard. But one thing that still sits there, as you know, is the and it's I'm sure Madam Chair will cut me off very quickly if I say the wrong things.
Know where you're going, but I'm not going to cut you off.
Thank you. Look, a long time ago, there was land to come back to Kawerau Wāmaki through the settlement process, and that was the land upon which sat the civic centre out at Waitakere, valued at several million. And we let that land go and dealt with the Crown and allowed for that land to be purchased by the then hard-working Waitakere city for the civic building. But knowing that Waitakere would help us find and acquire land for Kawerau to then build its marae. and resolutions were passed while still at Waitakere City. Land was set aside for that purpose, and we went through a hell of a time with the local board community, sorry, not the board, with the commissioners who listened to the local community as to whether, they would allow marae there or not. And today, 20 years on, having promised the then kaumātua Auntie Sally, Hariata Ewe and others who have passed on, we're still waiting today for that land to pass into our hands. And I just, the relationship is not that which it used to be, and we're very cautious. And we must do what we must do to protect the interests of the people. And it's not an easy one for me because, we'll have our owners say, you haven't got the bloody marae done, what's going on? And but we can only work with that which is in front of us. So I write back to Council, please look at those promises which have passed by resolution, and it should not be that because there is an amalgamation that we won't honour. We have honoured absolutely everything to Kawerau Maki, right back to the time of my ancestors when they gifted land. There are things called the Auckland tenths. My great-great-grandparents, ours, gave land to the community, gave land to the public to build schools and hospitals, which never eventuated. We gifted lands, and today we are worried about the kauri, but we've had not one thing back in return. The kauri for us is the last straw. It is the last big thing, and I'm going to end by saying, there's this little song that goes, Kua ngaro koe ki te pō, ko te kauri nui takoto, pipi wharauroa e tangi nei, re re pauri ki konei, kai ki ni te manawa, kai ki ni te aroha, kai ki ni te wai rua. Aue, hei ahara, tūtonu te kauri nui. Our grandparents sung that song a long time ago. Maybe they knew it was happening, but that's what the song is about.
That's a beautiful way to bring that together. Thank you. Thank you so much to Warana. I'm going to hand over to Member Blair to close off, but I just, at the risk of, between Councillor Cooper, myself and Te Kawerau Amaki, of dealing with our wider family issues in this forum, I would like to make a public statement that we will resolve the Te Henga Marae issue. I've spent time with our Chief Executive over the weekend talking this through, and this just needs to happen. I don't know, I haven't had a chance to talk in the last week with the Mayor about this, but I think we just need to undertake publicly that that will be resolved as quickly as we can. It's untenable that it's taken this long, and for that I apologise. Member Blair.
Kia ora tātou. I think the generosity and hospitality of Te Kawerau Maki that is shown to Auckland has been hugely significant, and I don't know if it's been reciprocated. And certainly with the last straw of the kauri, the council needs to be very bold in what we do next. And I know it's in your opinion that if we don't do it, the kauri will die. Is that in your, is that what you, in your belief? Yeah, it will die if we don't do it. And I just would like some response around how would that affect the livelihood or the mauri of your community if the kauri would die.
He ori te, kare kaua na he rereke.
So if the kauri dies, then their people will also die with the kauri, is what he's saying. It's the same. And I just want to leave those thoughts with us. And I think we've got great responsibilities on our shoulders, and you've put forward an amazing kōrero today. and your actions with the karakia and the rāhui on the weekend is something which the council also needs to embrace. And also being those of us that don't go through the forests or don't go in there, then I suggest you do understand that this is as a massive threat as a taonga to our nation. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora. Thank you. We'll make Member Blee's question the last, and I'd like to again acknowledge hugely and thank you for the presentation and for being here, Warana, and for leading the tribe in the Rāhui on Saturday. And as Councillor Cooper said, we were there for the Rāhui in Karikari, and we were there for the Rāhui on Saturday. So thank you. And hopefully we'll reach a resolution in the next hour or so. Thank you. Kia ora. Right.
Can we?
That would be lovely. Do you want to close it off however you would like to?
Yep, no problem. No reira tēnā rā koutou katoa. And those behind my back, ngā mihi to all of you as well. I don't like this idea, but here we go. No reira, e o ngā rangi te atoro ngā mano, koe neo ki mātou pono wa tāne, pono wa waihinga mōri hoa tēnei ao. E koropiko nei ki mua ki tō aroaro, e kahana ki te papuru i te taonga i waiho te ake ki a mātou, hei papuru i te taonga. No reira māu e whakapā te hoki te hurai kei mua kei a mātou, kei ngā rangatira nei ko te kauri. Ko koe hoki te tīmatanga te whakamutunga mea katoa, kōre ki tuinga tapu pai maari. Thank you.
Kura Warana. Erin, thank you for being available, and I think stand